Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. I want to start off this episode by saying Happy New Year, my friend. And I hope things are more or less starting out pretty positive. If it's not, it's okay. It's okay. And so this episode will be our Wayshowers Philosophy monthly meditation series. And we're going to dive into the spiritual theme of the month of January 2026. And so the theme of this current month is pioneer. Pioneer, spelled Pioneer. And I believe when it comes to that, with that word, I'm going to relate it with, for all intents and purposes, for simplicity's sake, of the verb pioneer, right? Because there's also the noun as well. But I'm going to approach it from the point of view of the verb. I don't know if that's what the college intended. I'm not involved in the team that helps put this together, but just letting you know, first and foremost. But first, I'd like to invite you to think about that as we get into this meditation here. How would you define, in dictionary terms, the word pioneer? And you can also write it down if you want. And then after you have that, again, an invitation to write down, what experience do you have that relates to the word pioneer? All right, so now it's my turn. I'll take a crack at it. So feel free to pause it if you want, just to kind of really think about that for a moment, just to regroup that with your team. Regroup that for yourself. So for me, when I think about the word pioneer, I think I would define it as to carve a new path, if you will. In some sense, to me, it's like to make way or to cover new ground. And maybe not necessarily what compared to other people, but compared to just like up to where I'm at this point in my journey, life on earth kind of a thing. So it's like more of a comparison of the now to the past. And it's like new experiences, perhaps, a new situation, a new relationship type of thing. Just I'm thinking about it from that perspective. Now, the dictionary's definition, I'll include that. It says to develop or be the first to use or apply. And that is to say, a new method, area of knowledge, or activity. The second definition that's here says to open up a road or terrain as a pioneer. And so an experience that I have, immediately what I was thinking about was way back when I went on my first actual vacation and my first full-time job. Because up until that point, I was just, excuse me, I was just taking like 3-day weekends and things like that. And I never really took a week off. But back in 2019, I took my first ever week off break from that job when I was working at the school, at a middle school at the time, to go travel in Kauai for a spiritual retreat. And that to me was me pioneering for myself new experiences that I never had before. First time going to the Hawaiian Islands and exploring that, particularly Kauai. I haven't had a chance yet to explore the other islands. And that was a new thing, and because of that step that I did led me to become more involved with my colleagues and people I consider my friends, and of course my friend and mentor, Tiger with the Wayshowers College, and that led to just a bunch of new opportunities and a lot of different courses and doing online meetups and all geared towards meditation and learning, growing, work with intuition, communicating with my spirit guides. Like this is the commonalities of these online meetups and classes that were had. And so just doing that thing for me is just like that's the beautiful stepping stone that opened the pathway for something bigger. In a sense, tapping into a community that's here, alive and thriving. So I want to share from that is I never underestimate your actions, especially like the little actions. Maybe like to go to the grocery store or decided to, maybe to go to a particular gym to work out or to go on a path if you're at like riding bicycles, for example, going on a path you've never been before. Little things that perhaps a lot of people wouldn't wouldn't be like whatever. It's like wouldn't make a big deal about, and never consider what that could possibly lead. All it can take is one decision, one small step, and your whole world can change. And I would hope for the better, truly. And for me, it usually has been because I've always been about following my path, listening to my heart, working with my intuition. And because I have gone down and I have pioneered my way through experiences that has helped me significantly. I think objectively speaking, it's like, wow, I'm doing a good job at working with my intuition. Even though for myself, I can be very critical and think, oh, I'm not doing so well. I'm not doing so hot. I'm just terrible. This. I'm just a hot mess. Can you relate with that? So let's get into the reading then before we start diving in. So the particular passage the excerpt from the meditation is going to be I'm going to be talking about the sub key theme keyword penetrate. So here we go. Penetrate. To penetrate any challenge, simply be a pioneer of purpose. When there are successes, I capitalize on them. When there are challenges, I capitalize on them too. I penetrate whatever I am doing down to its essence. I go past the veneer and draw out the learning lesson so that I may grow spiritually. It is the growth that I need, and I want my needs. If I want to be more successful materially, I must grow. If I want to graduate from planet Earth, I must grow. Otherwise, I will find remarkable and special ways to repeat old patterns. I must allow the learning and growing process to penetrate me. If I do not, I close down inside and a fear of success will take over. Once I realize I am here to fulfill my spiritual needs, I am free. I am then at the heart of my purpose, doing what I have come to do. All right, so we'll get into that section because there's a lot of important keys there that I definitely want to talk about. But what's the one thing? Let's see here. Aha. So one of the big things I want to talk about, where it mentions fear success will take over. And man, is that's something that I know I can relate for myself because there's a couple ideas that I've had that I think would be really good that I haven't implemented yet. And I'm having good feelings about them. But my intellect, or more deeply, to get deeper, my programming, my conditioning, starts to starts to speak, and all these excuses start coming up. Because here's the thing: when it comes to the fear of success, that's all programming that we all have been like that programming has been imposed in each and every single one of us to some degree. For some, a whole lot, to the point where it's paralyzing. And for others, it's not so much, but it still comes up. I know for me, one of my personal blocks is like this fear of doing something wrong. Or even when I've done something quote unquote wrong, there have been moments in my life where that has affected me is because I didn't act according to someone else's expectations. So there's just this imposition from the outer on my own freedom. And so that for me, I've come to realize, it's one of the quotes that for myself that it's been kind of like my own personal mantra that I want to share with you is that, and I'll say it I'll use the I pronoun. I have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. I have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. And to me, that makes a whole lot of sense because my worldview and how I relate with my day-to-day stuff is that life, planet Earth, this is a giant ass school. And all of us are here working on shit. We're working on stuff, again, unique to each person. And yes, there might be similarities, but nevertheless, we're all going down our own paths. At least when one is truly living authentically and living purposefully and doing their thing, right? The phrase, doing what I have come to do. To me, naturally, I'm going down a path no one has gone before. In light of all the similarities that might be there, that doesn't matter. I'm still going down the path where I'm in uncharted territory. That is a part of the process of living purposely, of living my purpose, or just doing my thing, what I've come to do. And all these things that we have are temporary, right? When we look at the material things, even this physical body is temporary. Even the identities. Take me, for example, I'm Hispanic. I'm 33 years old. I'm a male identifying, right? People have their identities. Okay, cool. Right? But that's how I identify. But that itself, the labels included, those are temporary. Now, when we're talking about the things that are eternal, we're talking about the core, right? The spirit. The spirit that has no creed, no sex, no orientations, none of that stuff. No color, etc. Pure spirit. Right? And so, having said, the temporary stuff, what we actually take with us, what I believe we take with us, is what we put together through our experiences. In some senses, like how well I've done of making, what's that term? Lemonade out of lemons. When life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. Like, I rate that by like my ability to how have I done that for myself in my experiences. Those moments when I've developed and I felt more secure, especially in a situation where I normally would have been stressed the hell out. But now it doesn't have a hold on me as much anymore. I'm more tapped into my freedom. Like that right there is like unlocking my deeper sense of freedom I have. Because I think my mentor told me that, I think about sometimes and I believe it makes sense. Where it's like, we can't consciously grasp how truly free we are. And just looking at the ways of the fear of success for myself and the excuses I impose on myself, these rules I put on myself to stop me from what I've come to do because of what? Some fear. It's funny how fear has a way of trying to have this motive of trying to protect me, but it's barring me, keeping me away, or it's being this wedge between me and my purpose. And the purpose is the thing that I feel alive. I feel happy. I feel fulfilled. I'm adventurous. And so I would, so it's like interesting how the taking the price of like of my own purpose for just a sense of security. But but growth happens outside the comfort zone. It doesn't happen in the safe zone. When we're in the comfort zone, that's those moments when we enjoy life, right? I think when to enjoy and relish and appreciate. And when those tough times come through or when it comes up, it's like, all right, it's time to work on my resilient muscles here. All right, let's see what I can do. I see it as a challenge. Like, all right, I'm gonna take this on. I can do it. Having like a positive belief in oneself. So for me, believing in myself that I can do it, and you can do it too. And the proof is in the pudding. And by pudding, I mean you're listening to this podcast episode and you've been through some shit. I'm sure. I ain't gotta know a whole lot of great the dirty details to know that. And if you're here listening to this episode, you've got resilience. You've got it within you. You can tackle any challenges that come up. It's just those damn excuses. Oh, the conditioning. Talk about patterns, right? The fear of success. That to me, at this point, I've definitely started to see how more and more I just worry about these temporary shit. One of which is like I worry about what people think about me. But I remember there was a post I saw on Facebook where this one part that resonated with me. It's like that basically that brought to my awareness. Eventually, I'm gonna be forgotten. No one's gonna remember me. I mean, maybe my close loved ones that knew me, but then at some point down the line, and say if I were to have children generations down the line, at some point down the line, I'm going to get forgotten. Can you remember your great 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 parents, grandparents? Probably not. So from that perspective, it's like we're all going to be forgotten. So I say that to say, it's a good reminder for myself. It's like, why do I get so caught up about how I'm going to be perceived, how people are going to look at me, when that's, first of all, how they see me, that's their freedom, right? That's their own personal freedom. That's their, how they relate with the world. That's from their own line of experiences. I can't, that's not my control, right? All I can do is just be my own authentic self. So that's why, with this school, it's nice to have theories. It's nice to have ideas about stuff, but experience is the ultimate teacher. And that won't ever change. You can learn about this. You can learn about the books about whatever. Da, 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 da. Name any subject, right? It could be something mechanical or technical, how to cook or how to do this, or it could be, soft skills, how to communicate, things like that. There's reading about it. The classroom said how like I look at the traditional school settings, but then there's the experiencing, right? That's why there's a saying, there's common sense, but not common practice. Practice being the operative word, the emphasis, the highlighted word, in bold, underline, everything, emphasize, uppercase. Practice. Everybody has to practice. If they want to grow, they need to practice. And what I've learned, and because I tried, I can't cheat. I can't think my way into growth. I can't think my way into fulfillment. Ain't no way that's going to happen. And if that sounds ridiculous to you, it should. But man, I can't tell you how many times I'm always being reminded and brought back to like, oof, I got to do the uncomfortable thing. Like this, it's tough. It's really tough. I'm not going to lie to you and be like, oh, it's all sweet and roses and all. Hell no. But because of the practice and work I've done on myself, I just look back on all these things to just to handle things that, to work with the things that have happened to me, or that life has put up in my doorstep, you could say, and to make it something to better me, right? And that's getting back to the meditation piece where it says, when there are challenges, I capitalize on them. And that's the thing that makes us so powerful. One of the many things, one of our superpowers. as, like you could say, as an alchemist, is that no matter what happens in our lives, we can use that to help better ourselves. I mean, think about those who are less fortunate, people who are dealing with disabilities, people who are aren't weren't raised in a healthy family, or people who are raised in a, it's in an abusive family type of thing. And it's just like no matter the situation, everybody has the ability to turn what on the surface and what's experienced in that moment, crappy, it sucks, it's shitty, into something very powerful. Remember, think back when I said, when I remember my little mantra here is that I have nothing to lose but everything to gain. Because while we're here in this planet, it's all about what we take with us, what I call spiritual real estate, right? Like while we're here in this temporary existence in this human shell, it's important. I've learned to prioritize what I take with me, and by remembering that all my opportunities are there as lessons, and class is always in session in this school of Earth. That right there is like a good mindset to have. But like the conditioning, the programmings that each and every single one of us has experienced can be a pain in the ass. Because like I said, I'm talking about this like as if it's easy. And trust me, I know and I can think of some moments when it was tough. Just a couple, like, speaking of the brief here, I had to go through, at least in the latter part of the year of 2025, I got hit by a car. I got hit by a motorist when I was riding my bike onto, I was headed to work, and I got hit by a motorist, and then I also had to grieve and deal with the process of losing a beloved pet I had for 8 years. Like these are heavy shit things that could, for many people, it's understandable that they would feel very upset and flustered, and finding themselves in the pattern of thinking and feeling, of loss and grief. But because of the practice that I've done for myself, and recognizing that I got a healthy relationship with myself, that I have to, recognizing for myself, but that only came about from working on it, doing the work for myself and showing up, has helped me to deal with some of the stuff like that. Again, just to name some few examples, they're extreme, but nevertheless, there's some examples, right? Maybe for yourself, maybe you've thought, maybe you've been through like a breakup, maybe you've gone through a loss of job, or maybe you've gone through a health challenge. I know I have. you know, you name it, right? The list can go on. But it's important that with the stuff that's happening, and this is and why I think it's important to have a big picture. Because otherwise I will get caught up in the currents, in the strongest currents of the environment of my situations, where I start thinking life happens to me, when in reality, in my opinion, life happens for me as much as life happens for you and for my neighbor. And I say my neighbor, anybody. Just what's your belief system? What do you believe? Do you think that's right to believe that? Do you question that? And I'm saying that in the event that if you have belief systems that aren't necessarily working for you, that aren't really constructive, that aren't actually helping. And this is part of the journey. Like everything, even before we even incarnate into this planet, but I won't go too much into that. But like everything, like there's in a lot of ways no accidents. Not in a way that is like, if let's say you go to, like you're going to the store, and on your way somebody just walks up to you with the ice cream and just for no reason just throws it at you, and it's not like, oh shoot, that was that was meant to be that moment type of thing. But it's like, in this way, you have to be careful about, I know for myself, not to get so like super like literal interpretation, trying to like analyze things, because that's when the intellect mind goes crazy, and it's just like trying to, that's where one may put value when there isn't. And It's about like what's the underlying thing that's going on. And the key word for this is pattern. What's the pattern? And you might hear this a lot, like patterns, patterns, patterns. Like, what's the patterns? Oh, patterns. Well, just to give you some perspective, as a soul for the physical body, you and I, we're patterns of energy, intelligent light. But going back, pattern of energy. So it's like patterns everywhere. The universe pattern. It's like it's also talking about the rhythms and routines of the universe. That's what we have here on Earth, and that's what's out there in the universe. Pattern. I want you to think of an image of like imagine like a spiral going up. Uh, I think it's because there's an image that the college uses. I think it's the upward spiral, but it kind of starts to expand. But I think it goes counterclockwise. I don't remember if it's counter or clockwise, but I think there's something significant about it. I don't know exactly why, but just imagine that for a moment, because that's pretty much what our evolution looks like in a simplified way. When you look at it in terms of like energy and our growth, it's like we start to come back to the same thing, but this time from at a higher level, right? Or at times, or if we're not growing, it could be very like linear, like on one level, and it's not rising. That's where like imagine being going around a track field, and you're just constantly boom, boom for however many times that you're still operating in that pattern. And so when I think about the word pioneer, it's like if I'm stuck in a pattern for a while, the energy of pioneer enables me to make that break in that pattern. So if I'm like in that situation where I've been in the track and field, like linear, just one plane and haven't been rising, it's like making that one tiny shift. Because that's usually, in my experience, that's generally been the case of what is needed to make a powerful shift in the pattern. Like I used to think like, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z. I have to do all this because this pattern I'm deeply ingrained in is this so tough and it's this hard. I mean, yeah, I dug a grove for myself, and understandable. It's easier to gravitate towards that, and that's why to kind of to create a new groove to just to pioneer my way through. It's a conscious effort in the practice. Again, coming back to the practice. While talking about all this, I'm just getting a sense of why it makes sense. It feels difficult because I don't know about you. I can be very comfy with my blocks, my old patterns that aren't helping me. Even whatever feels comfy, like my old paradigms or perspectives or an old picture. It can be very easy, and that for me, one of the things I've been thinking about, I wanted to embody more this year is water. Or at least I feel like it might be a key thing for me. I don't know how you relate with it, but I thought I want to share it anyway. Because water can make its way through regardless whatever's in the way. It's fluid, it adapts, right? And that's where that the water is a perfect symbol to basically, if you want to put a picture to your superpower as an alchemist, you're like water. Like when you're on and you're doing your thing and you working on yourself, you believe in yourself, you trust yourself, no matter what happens. That's right there. That's embodying that water. Be water, my friend. To quote a famous martial artist. But that right there, he was, but that speaks testament to just one of the big staples when it comes to, I believe, to be successful in life. But success meaning like, I think this is a common ingredient, a common quality to build upon because of how dynamic and how chaotic life can feel at times. Water, to embody that water, is essential. Can you think of a moment when you've embodied the element of water? Or maybe perhaps you can maybe there's an experience you can think of where you weren't embodying water and you felt yourself caught. What was going on there? And that could just be an opportunity to look at for yourself, where you can kind of journal around, like what's been going on, what were you feeling, how did you see yourself in that situation, how do you see whatever it was that in that experience, right? Asking those questions that allow you to take a step back, right, into yourself, where it asks for you to be really raw and honest with yourself and not BS yourself. But I think with that kind of stuff, it's important to set aside that time. Because if it's not, then I know for me, if I don't set the time to take care of some stuff that I've been dealing with for a while, and there are a couple things, then I'm just going to be in that pattern again and again. Until at some point I take the high road and then I start to pay a steeper price. At least that's how life operates. It's like if we don't adapt in our ways, if we don't embody that water, life will kick us in the ass and in a way kind of force us to, you know. That's a reason why. That's not the only, but it's a thing of why if people develop something physically, or even if something or if people experience life changes that are so extreme, those are like interventions, but really life trying to support us and say, hey, it's time to make some changes here. This pattern that's not serving has been going on for too long, and something needs to be done about it. At least when I look at it like that, it just makes sense to me why life is there for us, not against us. Life doesn't happen to us. That is ignorant. That is, yeah. So, I think it's really important to get into that practice of just like, and and me working with the college gave me some tools and stuff to help me do that. And I'll say this, like I said, if you're someone that needs some tools and needs something to work with, instead of just like, oh, I don't even know what to do, which is understandable. I invite you to check out the show notes. I have some links to the Wayshowers College page and some programs and material, some courses and stuff that's on there to help you, begin with like within yourself and your own belief systems, because that is one of the crucial places to start. If you ever find yourself in a place where it's just like not in the best place, because it's that very thing that can prevent us from doing the things we need to do. And and the sooner that people start to do that, the more people start to feel fulfilled, because it's like a lot of us aren't taught to acknowledge or to take care of our own needs. I know for me, especially, I've always been taught this idea of selflessness. And I think it makes for a good technique, but a horrible way of life. Meaning that there are moments and times where I have to consider and work with other people and my focus is on them. But then it's only a brief period of time. But at that point, what happens next? Do I still stick around that person? Do I stay attached? Am I bound to that person now? Selfless mode? Or do I have to come back home to myself? Well, I'm sure you know what the answer is. Think about it from that perspective, right? It's like, what are my needs? How can I get those met? Because that right there is the key to feeling more fulfilled. When that gets ignored, well, pattern. I mean, it could be a pattern, but it could also be one-off instances as well too. But I highly encourage you to check out the tools, because for me, in my experience working with my spirit guides, when it's like going back to the meditation now again, where it talks about distilling things down to an essence, right? I think it said to penetrate whatever I'm doing down to its essence. That right there captures the core of like what my spiritual helpers, what our spiritual helpers, because you have help too, what they see. That it's that bird's eye point of view. And when those moments when I'm able to tap in and really look at my life from that bird's eye point of view, man, it really, that's why I share what I'm sharing right now, because I know this is the real deal. This is the real deal. And like, okay, that's why I'm always now, even now more than ever, I always care about the big picture of where my life's going. Hell, I even created a system where something very basic and simple. just to help me map out my life in a way that's getting to like the core values and principles and just like and life lessons, of course. Like, what is it that I'm learning right now? So think about it for yourself. What are some patterns that you are there any patterns that you have noticed within yourself lately? If you haven't, what about patterns you've noticed in other people? Maybe there are people that stimulate you. And if that's the case, bingo. What you see in me or in others, you have to some degree within yourself. So if you're ever trying to find some bearings on where the hell, what to work on, whatever, in the case if you're in that equation or need somebody with greater clarity and can't seem to dig within yourself, okay, what do you observe outside? Because we observe and relate with the world through how we see ourselves. So that's why that to add on and expand on what I was saying, like what you see in me, you have to some degree yourself. So again, coming back to the question, what are some patterns you notice within you and outside yourself? And then just take a moment to just, what is it about that pattern that you notice? What stands out? And how do you feel about that pattern? Is it something that stimulates you or does it inspire you? And then, of course, if it stimulates you, now we can get into the dirty details. Well, at least for yourself. Why? And a good question in that regard to ask as well, to really pin it down. How does it relate to my first 7 years? Because almost always, if there's something going on right now, no matter what stage in life you are, no matter what age bracket you are, you can almost always trace it back to your first 7 years because that's part of the curriculum. And that's what I've learned. Sorry if I'm raising my voice here, but like, I'm just something I've come to learn at this stage of my life. And I've had old timers in their 60s and 70s telling me the same thing. Make that make sense. Well, this actually I am making sense, but I don't know. Make that not make sense, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that would be a good place, I think, for this month is, to examine some patterns you have and discovering ways that you can pioneer your way out of those patterns. And that's the kicker part, and that's the part that where the practice comes in, where the challenges come in, where we cannot cheat our way through. You can't cheat your way. To me, it's like you can't cheat. You have to pioneer. You either pioneer or you attempt to cheat. In which, if you try to do that, you're resisting yourself. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting everything around you, the support system around. You're just resisting everything, and all that does is just create separation. When in reality, we're all one with. We're all connected. So it's about coming back into alignment. When you are in alignment and your own center, you're going to be treading path like you're just going to be a powerhouse. You tap into your own pioneering energy, nothing can stop you. You are unstoppable. That is a fact. You are unstoppable. And if they hear thoughts that say otherwise, cast them out. I tell them, fuck off. You don't know me. You don't know me. Who are you? I'm unstoppable. Like I'm saying, tap on your chest. I'm unstoppable. Like, it's a good thing. Like, if you ever, something a little tidbit here. I don't know if you work with affirmations or mantras, but something to kind of add greater emphasis to really feel it more solid is that whenever you say the I pronoun, gently tap yourself on your chest. Like, that technique is something that they offer, at least in some profiles and stuff that the college offers, that's incorporated into the technique. And that right there can place greater emphasis, and it really helps to get it into your feeling part. You feel it within yourself, right? Imagine feeling confident, feeling secure, like that feeling, right? Feel. And so, and as I mentioned before, and I'll phrase it this way, if you're listening to this, you're someone that wants to live authentically. You want to live a meaningful life. You want to live your life. And I want all that for everyone. And what that requires of you is to be your own pioneer. You need to be your own leader. I know I need to be my own leader. And that's why part of our journey here and why we're here, one of the commonalities is self mastery. I know because that's what my helpers did when they were here at some point. That's what church team did at some point when they were here. And now they're here with us on the other side to help guide and to support us in our decisions, right? Because they're never going to do things for us because they know how capable and free we are. A high soul will never impose, ever. Anything that does and says should, da da da, is something else. And it's just confusion at best. So, I hope you feel pumped up and hyped up, because that's part of my intention with this episode. And even just looking at this, what I'm feeling in this meditation, it's like, man, I need to be my own hype coach. Like, woo, 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 let's go, Alvin, oh, let's go. It's like having that kind of energy for yourself, and it's great if you get that from people, and no shame in leaning into that. But you have more power to yourself if you can do that for yourself as well. And both things can be true. It's like lean into your support systems and then lean into yourself. Especially because not everybody has the support system that would be ideal to believe and to hype up and just like, hey, I'm gonna pioneer my life. I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna help live purposely, have fun, go on adventures, build memories, etc., right? So, I think if anything, it's just, even when I'm reading this, it just feels like inspired, and then that word penetrate. Again, I just want to bring you also back again as we're closing the episode of just thinking about that water, embody that water, because that is, and it's funny because our bodies are made up of water. I remember it was just like, I don't know if it's I don't have the facts on this, but it was something to the effect of like, well, we're made up 90% water or something, or 80%, basically a high percentage, right? So it's interesting how from a material and a spiritual perspective, we are water, we embody it. So that's like an interesting, cool thing that I've come to realize, and that's the thing itself, a core of what we are, who we are. That basically is like our own innate programming for success, right? Think about your inner child. You weren't doubting yourself. You were having a blast. You were doing the things like, even like, observe children. Take some time, because I do from time to time when in passing, or if I'm visiting family, and I'm always reminded of those simple truths. Like a child doesn't feel like they feel constricted or anything. They feel unstoppable. They can just do whatever type of thing. Like that feeling, that freedom within, fully tapped. And that right there is a process in of itself as well. But like I said, but at least one thing I want to emphasize though with all this, be careful of lack. That's something that I know can get me, and it's like there is no lack, because think like a muscle. It just needs to be developed. So no matter where you are in your journey, think more developed, less lack. You don't lack confidence. You don't lack, let's say, for example, self-esteem. You don't lack skill. It's just they're not developed. Or like, I'll even go as far as to include, you don't lack sense of humor. You got sense of humor. That's another one. Because I'm just thinking of stuff where people would like tend to be like, oh, I don't have that. Or here's another one. Creativity. You don't lack creativity. And yet I find it so fascinating, and it just boggles my mind. Some people are like, oh, I'm not creative. You're not creative? Wow. How are you going to deny a part of yourself? Self-denial. I've been there. Oof. I feel for that. So, you're a pioneer, my friend. You're water. You're capable. You can do it. You can do anything. There's a will, there's a way. If there's desire, there's a way. If there's commitment, there's a way. If there's determination, there's a way. As long as you never give up. And just remember that while you're still here right now, you are successful. Even just being here in this planet, in the physical body, you are successful. And now it's like, now take a step further. How can you become more successful? What are the ways that you're holding yourself back? What are the ways that you're keeping yourself from being successful? What are your fears of success? And I just want to give a gentle reminder for those, I've kind of thrown some questions at you. But please feel free to just replay this episode and just catch some of those questions for yourself and genuinely set aside some time for yourself. I don't know if that's a New Year's resolution, or perhaps you're pretty good at that and you got a good routine and practice going for you, and in which case, great. But if you don't, it wouldn't be a bad idea to set some time for yourself. And 5-10 minutes is all that's needed. Doesn't have to be an hour. Doesn't have to be 24/7. But just taking those important moments to yourself. That to me is a daily need, and I think that's part of what's necessary to be successful. Give yourself that grace. Give yourself that opportunity. So, I mean, ultimately, you get out of life what you put into it, no more, no less. So, the more you put into it, the more you give, the more you get that ROI, the return on investment, spiritually. And again, that's the stuff that we take with us. That to me is like I'm working towards prioritizing more and more now. Like I said, I got my own chinks in my armor where I'm not prioritizing that, and I'm prioritizing things that really have no business to, or at least get involved in things, habits and stuff. Like trust me, like I'm in the process too, and it's a continual process as long as we're here in this planet until we pass on and graduate. So, having said all that, my friend, enjoy the journey. You're great for where you are. You're perfect for where you are. Everything's going to be all right. No big deals. You got this. You got this, kid. I believe in you. And you got a solid team there also who believes in you as well. Just follow the chills. So, this has been another episode of Spiritual Engineered. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.